Holy cow. Welcome back. Or welcome period. If this is your first time, welcome to the Motyv podcast. My name is Shaden Bertinoli. If you don't know me, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and it has been a minute since I have recorded. I'm excited to talk to you about some of the changes we've made here. And today in this episode, I want to really focus on that. I want to focus on what's changed here and teach you some things that I think will be really helpful for your life. And let's just get the elephant out of the room. I've lost some hair and decided I might just lose it all. So here it is. So if you had a double take on me, yes, I am Shaden if you didn't recognize me. It's been a minute though. It's been a minute since I've done a podcast, and please don't think that I am ungrateful for all the support. Don't think that I was neglecting or just quitting. It's part of what I want to share today. About 4 months ago, I found myself in a I would say a bad place, hard place, nothing that was too scary as far as my mental health, but at the same time, I'm someone who's very determined to focus on purpose. I mean, one of the reasons I named Motyv is because of how passionate I am about doing things with purpose. And so although I know that I'm in somewhat of a purpose when it comes to helping people and doing therapy, I just realized that I was moving myself and trying to create many focuses, if you will, in many different directions all at the same time. And I was trying to move many boulders an inch at a time in multiple directions. And I think many of you do that too, right? I think many of you, if you actually slowed down and look at your life, if you actually thought how many things am I actually trying to move forward at one time? And I don't think we're really built to move a lot of things at the same time forward. In fact, I think we're the other way. I think the word priority is meant to be singular, and I think that many of us have an ability to be excellent at something if we'll just give it focus. And I realized I was getting burned out by actually being decent or good or average at a lot of things, and come into a time in my life where I just want to be. I wanted to try to focus on being excellent in one thing, and so I took a step back. I took a step back from a lot of things, a lot of people, took some time with my family, and went camping a lot and pondered a lot. And as I asked myself this question, what is it you really want to be excellent at? A very specific answer came to me pretty quickly and pretty easily. And it didn't mean that after it came that I was completely connected to it or that I was now like without hesitation all in, because it would have big time impact on my life, but still it seemed to make sense for me. And what that was, there's a scripture in Jacob chapter 2 in the Book of Mormon. There's scriptures in the Bible as well, in Isaiah, where the phrase "liberate the captive" is used. And I think I've maybe mentioned that in podcasts before, I don't know, but liberating the captive is it's mine. Like, that's a phrase for my soul. All the movies I love, every story I've ever loved, it's about liberation. It's people escaping from prison. It's people changing their life over. I love seeing people liberate themselves. And in particular for me now, I want to help men liberate their lives. And I told my entire team this, and who are amazing people, and guess what? They're all in too. And we're slowly taking these steps forward. You can see the new podcast studio. We're taking steps forward to turn Motyv into a men's mental health experience, into a liberation program where we help men in any way that we can liberate their lives. Just a side note, just for you females who are listening, please don't think that means you're neglected. We, in the heart of wanting to help men in their mental health, well, what do you think impacts a man's mental health almost more than anything in this world? His wife, right? His spouse, his significant other. And so don't think we're neglecting you. We want to help you as well, whatever it is. If it's betrayal, if it's forgiveness, if it's reconnection, if it's understanding him, we want to help you in any way that we can to understand men as well, because that liberates him and that liberates you at the same time. And so, Sadly, right? Sadly, one of the biggest reasons, one of the bigger whys of why to do this for me is because of the men that I have sadly lost, right? Whether it's in my therapy practice or whether it's been in my personal life, there are too many men who sadly have taken their life. And it's just the facts. It's the research. Men are lethal. When they attempt it, it works a lot of the time. Women attempt more, but they usually more take pills or something, and they're able to then call for help and able to get it figured out. But guys are pretty lethal, and we've got to save them. You need saved, and so sadly there are too many stories that I personally have, too many phone calls I've had from wives saying to me, I mean, I can just hear it right now. Shaden, he's gone, and I can just hear that phone call of just utter dismay and just sadness, right? Of like, you got to be kidding me. And so men need help. You need help. I'm going to start talking to you, men. It's you. You need help. Another big reason that I want to do this is because men, you need a community. Men need community. We're pack animals. That's how we are. Think about your whole life up until now. Most men, when you think about as a boy, you're on a team, you're in Boy Scouts, you're at church, you're on little league teams, whatever. You're in classes where in your classes you even run around in a group of guys a lot of the time. Your whole life. Then for those who are LDS, you go on a mission, you're in a pack there, and go to college, you usually find a pack there, and then you get married. And a lot of the time that pack kind of dies out. And I think there's purpose to that. I do think there's purpose to that. You have to cleave to your wife. That is for sure. However, a lot of the experience I have, and in my personal life as well, is that in my mid-20s to mid-30s, it's a very lonely time. It's there's a lot of disconnection from that accountability, that discipline, that team mentality where as a team you're growing together. And so that is a huge reason we want to do. That's a huge reason we're already doing what we're doing with what we're calling Motyv Men, which is an app-based group of men who are working out together, holding themselves accountable with food, meeting for group therapy once a week, jumping on a chat, the ability to chat together, hold each other accountable. And I already said that, but it's awesome, right? It's an amazing group, and you can jump into that at any time you want. So here's one of the biggest reasons that I'm also doing this podcast today is my goal is that you feel seen and understood. And if you're a spouse listening to this, I hope it helps you understand and see your husband a little bit more, because this is the underlying, the deepest why for me, and really the foundation of what Motyv means for me. Okay, so Motyv has two sides to it. Think of it as this infinite. It's an infinite why, if you will. What it means is Motyv shows me why you do what you do, and the other side of Motyv tells me what you want. So it's like someone going on a hike. You know where you want to go, but what's fueling that? What's behind that? Right? That's what's so critical. What's behind where you're going, and what is it that you actually want? Think about that. Okay, what you want, that's called responsibility. That law of responsibility is so big for men. And so many of you I know you're experiencing so much pain because you carry a heavy load, you carry responsibility. Sometimes that responsibility isn't the best responsibility you could have taken, by the way. A lot of the time that responsibility you've taken on is more ego-based, more focused on just like selfishness and insecurity. But nonetheless, you carry a responsibility. The worst part about that is what's behind it is a deep insecurity or shame that you're not enough. And so we have these two sides battling each other, and we actually have to change both of them, where you start to look at what is your highest responsibility. Right? What is the most noble, highest responsibilities you need to take? And on the other side, how much self-compassion can you create? Because I'm sick and tired. I am sick and tired of me falling into this, but more importantly, seeing other men fall into this life of where they're driven, and they fall and burn out. Why? They're carrying all this responsibility, half of which is just crappy responsibility. And what's behind it is so much insecurity, so much feeling of like, why do I do it? It's because I'm not enough. I'm always trying to prove myself. I'm always trying to show myself. I'm trying to earn love from other people. And it just burns you out because now your responsibility has so much to it. There's so much weight to it. There's so much extra weight to it. Literally, your self-worth is on the line most of the time. Okay, but on the flip side, what I'm also struggling to see is when I see men who are idle. Okay, so idleness is this idea that like maybe I'm not super ashamed of myself. I have some compassion, like I'm like nice to myself, but really I don't carry any responsibility. And the problem with that is if you lack compassion, if you lack responsibility, you lack meaning. And I'm here to tell you that there's not a man I've ever met that wants to be on his deathbed one day and say, well, I didn't lead a life of meaning. I mean, leading a life of meaning is what it's all about. That's what we're doing here. You deserve to lead a life of meaning. But it doesn't come through just accomplishment for accomplishment's sake. Meaning is derived from divine responsibility, from carrying that load personally. But in the same breath, when you fail, when you struggle in those responsibilities, instead of shaming yourself, actually having compassion for yourself. And compassion isn't just this weak thing. Like compassion isn't a lack of accountability. It's actually the opposite. Accountability leads to compassion. But shame is what you know. I know you. There's every man struggles with shame. And so shame's automatic behavior, if you will, what shame prompts you to do is hide. And from an early age, most of you, that's what you've been doing. You've been hiding. And it's not even your fault. Most of you, when you were little boys, from 4 years old, you were loved. Like there was love. If you weren't, I'm sorry. That means you definitely need to join us. But most people have they call it a decent childhood. Like they know they were loved. But the question was, were you seen? Were you known? Because if you weren't, which most of us weren't, most of us were seen and known for a while, and then it changed. And what changed is the only time we were seen is when we did something good. Well, that trains a kid. That trains a kid a lot. Into what? I call it the first addiction. Approvalism. Where my worth, my love, being loved is now based on what I do. So, we start doing that. We start achieving and achieving and achieving. The problem is, you get good at it. And you don't even know that what's behind it is a deep insecurity that I'm not enough if I don't. And that gap, now times that by years of performance, worthy performance, if you will, right? Performance for worth. Times that by years, doing it one time is painful. It actually creates pain, just so you know. That pain is called loneliness. And most men with anger issues, guess what that's called? Loneliness. And now you times that by thousands of experiences where it's just lonely. You go to your bed by yourself and nobody sees you. It's lonely. But then who did you turn to, right? Who did you open up to? Who saw you? Nobody. So have you really been trained to be seen? Is that like a normal habit for you to let yourself open up and be seen by people? No. And don't get me wrong. I'm a man. I know that there are so many times, guess what? It's not time to be seen. That's just the facts. There are times when it is not time to be seen. There are many times it's time to like cover up and be tough. That's for sure. There are. But if that's always, which in most men's cases, that's what it is. It's always, there's your problem. And especially when you don't know where to go, huge problem. But even if you knew where to go and how to turn and who to turn to, and that it would really listen, but inside of you, there's just this constant, like, I can't do that. I won't do that. You learned that. That's not natural. You learned that through pain. And now that pain, think about the consequences of how many people want to really connect with you. Your spouse, number one. But they can't. They struggle. They know there's a barrier. They get to a certain spot with you, and it just stops. Ask them. You know it. You know where it stops. And isn't it interesting that a lot of you with kids, it doesn't stop? Think about it. I know. You men with kids, there's a connection that you have with them that's a lot deeper than a spouse sometimes, in a different way. Why? It's because kids are safe most of the time. My kid the other day went to primary at church, and somebody said, "When is Jesus coming back again?" And my little daughter said, "I don't know, but when Jesus comes back again, my dad's hair is going to grow back." And anyway, it was a pretty good joke, I guess. The primary loved it. They laughed pretty hard. I will get my hair back one day. Right? But there's pain. And you don't open up about it. But there's a closeness with kids that just is safe. So you connect deeper with them. So the question really is like, what do you want? Think of responsibility as this GPS system of where you want to go in your life. So if you adopt incorrect responsibilities, I would say, or responsibilities based in vanity, like wealth. Okay, is it bad to want to earn a lot of money? No. But if I said, are you focused on a responsibility of providing or responsibility of getting wealthy? There's a subtle difference, right? And that difference is huge. Focusing on becoming wealthy usually, unless you can prove it to me otherwise, is usually based in insecurity. But choosing to provide is a responsibility that's noble. Taking on a responsibility to protect by not having addictions, by not having struggles. In many other ways, there's so many other ways to protect as well. Okay, but what you want, again, drives where you're going in your life and the meaning in your life. And if you want the wrong things, what happens is, especially fueled by shame, is you become captive. Because now your responsibilities are either very little or they're incorrect, and you're fueled by so much insecurity that's when you feel stuck. I promise. So, because that word, if I could take so many of the sessions I've ever had with men, and they came in, and I could summarize some of their first statements to me. If I said, if they sit down in front of me, and I said, "Why are you here? What brings you to therapy today?" If I summarize what they usually said to me, the word would just be, "I'm stuck. I'm confused. I don't know what's going on." And so a huge part of our mission in liberation is knowledge, gaining skills, learning and having self-awareness, learning what is actually going on for you. Do I think you have to understand all of you to be able to move forward? No. I actually think the act of moving forward is what teaches you a lot of what's going on for you. That's why we have our program, to start focusing on the body, start breaking down the body first, start learning how to fast a little bit, to go without sugar, to go without things. It puts you in a painful situation, but it works. But that's when you feel that stuckness, and when you think about it, if you have so much hopelessness, if there's a lot of worthlessness going on, which can happen, especially if you're struggling with addiction a lot, where you feel super hopeless, super helpless, so much shame, and you just kind of say, like, forget it, like, I just don't even care anymore. That's a nihilism. That's when you're in the deepest part of purposelessness, and that's when you're most captive. And sadly, that's when suicidal thoughts can come in, because it just feels like I'm just a burden, like I got to give up. But you can't. Do not give up. I'm not saying I'm the savior, but I am saying we want to help you. Stop letting yourself be alone. There's a way out of this. You can get help. You can change. I promise. I've been there. Somebody, as I've told people that we're making this shift over, they've asked me why. And I share some things, of like, well, this is, I've lost people before. I want to help them. There's guys need a community and everything. But the fact is, it's for me. I want to help men because I've gone through it too, and I'm still going through it. But I think I'm a little more ahead of it than some other men. And not that it's a competition or a race, but as far as knowing what's going on, there's a little bit of a difference here. Because I was that kid who had a great childhood. I couldn't dream of better parents. And if my mom was sitting right here, I could very boldly say, and she would know without resentment, because we've worked through this. And if my dad was here too, I could say, Mom and Dad, you guys know you weren't really attuned to me. Like I wasn't really seen. And it's so cool to know that I've worked through that because I feel seen by them now, even in my dad's passing. But nonetheless, little Shaden lacked attunement. And so he developed ways of coping. And he was given a gift of coordination. So if you gave me a ball, I could do whatever I wanted with it. And I could achieve all those things. And I had charisma and I had all those things. And what was it covering up? So much of that. So much insecurity of just wanting to be loved, wanting to be seen, wanting to be safe. But it never happened until way late, right? Till my 30s. Meanwhile, I didn't realize that so many of the things in my life that I was doing, even really, really good things, had a tendency to be morphed and to be taken from a good thing and be turned into something that my relationship with it was very unhealthy because it was based in protecting my ego, protecting what I thought I was so insecure about or what I was so bad with. Here's the idea too, when in fact, everything that I believed about myself that I thought was insecure was just an illusion. Like the way that I felt like bad or whatever. It's an illusion. It was something that I thought was true, but it isn't true. It wasn't. But it took serious work to figure that out. And you listening, you need to do work. Do you think it's easy just to be like, oh, I'm just going to reorganize my responsibilities and I'm just going to stop shaming myself and I'm just going to start practicing a ton of self-compassion? You think that's easy? No. These are just as hard as these are literally almost addictions. There are patterns of mind that your brain knows to do that when you make a mistake, you shame. There are patterns in your mind that says compassion is weak. That having self-compassion is letting yourself off the hook, that you don't deserve it. There are patterns of mind that say adopting these responsibilities, I'm not worthy to do that. I'm not worthy to take that on. I'm not worthy to be that man. And I can prove it. Because your greatest fear, think about this. Your greatest fear isn't this guy you're hiding. This guy in the past, this guy with secrets. He isn't. Your greatest fear is the man you can become. The man you get glimpses of. That you've seen before. The man who's disciplined, the man who tells the truth, the man who can handle deep joy and deep love, who can stay present when love is needed, when joy is needed, when comfort is needed. The man who gets up on time, who eats healthy, who puts his wife's well-being at the forefront of his life, puts his kids' well-being. He scares the crap out of you. Why? Because you know how much work it's going to take to get there. But the fact that you see him means he's real. And the fact that every once in a while you have like an hour or even 15 minutes where you feel him, like you feel that guy in you coming out. What do? I know what I did. I shrank. I avoided. It's like, nah, I'm not worthy to be that guy. Somebody else is, though. That guy that's killing it, that guy that's doing well that way, man, I just wish I could be like him. But once I'm better, then I will. And that delusion right there, that illusion and delusion, whatever you want to call it, deception, that's the real. That getting better first is what's going to create that man. Focusing on that man and actually believing in him, taking accountability for your life and connecting with others to get there, then practicing serious discipline day in and day out to get there, that's what you need. And this might sound like a really big sales pitch, but I guess whatever. That's what we're doing in Motyv Men. That's what we do. And you need it. And we want you here. Me and 3 other amazing male therapists are there to help you. Awesome. And does it even have to be therapy every day? No. But we're here to help. So as I close this, I want you to have some thoughts. And if you even learned one little thing, think about what day in and day out connection could do. If you learned a lot today, if this is making you ponder of like, wow, maybe I did have some pain as a kid that I really haven't ever looked at. And maybe that kind of is what it does influence me in when I shut down, when I isolate, when I relapse, when I refuse to connect, even though the people in my life are so ready to connect with me. Yeah, I promise you. That's why. So if you've learned even a little bit in this little podcast, of which there will be many more, by the way, I'm excited to say, then why not? And you can contact us through our phone number, 435-315-2520. You can email us, assistant@motyv.com, or Shayden, SHAYDEN, @motyv.com. Whatever you'd like. But we're here to help. And I'm excited to get this journey underway. We already are, technically, but to launch it with this podcast, this new chapter of our podcast, is really exciting. I'm really grateful for the other episodes I've done and for Bree and helping me to begin the podcast long ago. And I'm just so excited to take this next chapter and lead men and help men be understood, to understand the research behind men, of which there's sadly not that much relative to what else is out there. But yeah, you deserve and you need to have help, just like you've had help with many other things in your life, with business, with sports. You've had coaches, you've had help in so many other ways. Why not in this right now? Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.